Hello. The potent attraction of life in the English country house was exemplified in Country Life, a glossy weekly magazine launched by Edward Hudson in 1897. Although he was articled to a solicitor as a young man, Hudson didn't pursue a legal career, but instead took over the family printing firm in Southwark at the age of 21 and diversified the business, creating a publishing house. The underlying philosophy behind Country Life magazine was in part to counter the perceived threat to traditional country living from increasing urbanisation and industrialisation, and to promote the lifestyle as an aspirational idyll. Country Life was read equally by those living the life and by those for whom it was an aspiration. Ramsey McDonald, who became the first Labour Prime Minister in 1924, was the illegitimate son of a farm labourer and a housemaid. Pictured at Chequers Court in Buckinghamshire, gifted to the nation as a country house for the Prime Minister by Arthur Lee, Viscount Fareham, and his American heiress wife Ruth, dressed in tweeds, he looks completely at home, the epitome of the country gentleman. Among those joining the ranks of the established landowning country house set in the late Victorian and Edwardian periods were industrialists and financiers from England and abroad, notably America and South Africa. Hands-on businessmen living over the shop who made their fortunes were able to step back from day-to-day management and enjoy the pleasures of country life. Michael Thomas Bass, who built the family brewery based in Burton-on-Trent in Staffordshire into the largest brewery in the world, developed a country estate a few miles outside of Burton and had Rangemore Hall built around the core of an existing manor in the 1850s. The hall was later extended by his son, Michael Arthur Bass, created Baron Burton in 1886, who hosted Edward VII and a royal party including Queen Alexandra and the King's long-time mistress Mrs. Alice Keppel for a weekend in 1907. Rangemore Hall is now converted into luxury apartments. William Armstrong, founder of the Tyneside Engineering and Armaments Company Armstrong and Whitworth, built Cragside, a country house within extensive grounds near Rothbury in Northumberland in the late 19th century. It was enlarged and remodelled by architect Norman Shaw in arts and crafts style and is now looked after by the National Trust. Shaw converted a museum into a space with echoes of the Elizabethan Long Gallery, lit from the roof, for Armstrong's art collection. Theodore Manda, a Wolverhampton paint and varnish manufacturer, bought an estate just outside the town at Whittick Bank in 1887 and commissioned architect Edward Auld to create a manor house in half-timbered Old English vernacular external style, but with all mod cons, including central heating and a Turkish bath. Whittick Manor passed into National Trust ownership in 1937. Haythorpe Park in Oxfordshire, a baroque country house built for Charles Talbot, Earl of Shrewsbury in the early 18th century, which had stood empty for 40 years following a fire, was bought and under the direction of Alfred Waterhouse rebuilt for civil engineer Thomas Brassey, whose company was responsible for building much of Britain's railway infrastructure as a wedding present for his son. It's now a hotel. Iron and steel entrepreneur John Lycett acquired Tudor Hengrave Hall near Bury St Edmunds, now a wedding venue, in 1887. Banker Ferdinand Rothschild purchased an agricultural estate in the Vale of Aylesbury, where the family already owned property, and in 1877 began building Wadsden Manor in the style of a Loire Valley Renaissance chateau, a grand house in which to entertain his friends at weekend parties. The structure hides contemporary innovations, including a steel frame. Inside there was hot and cold running water in the bathrooms, central heating, and an electric bell system to summon servants. Extensive landscaping enabled the creation of impressively elaborate flower beds, and transplanting mature trees created an instant wooded area. Maintenance required a garden staff of more than 50. The picturesque Five Arrows Hotel, named after the Rothschild emblem, was built at the gates of the manor, designed by a local architect and builder, James Taylor, in an ornamental, half-timbered Tudor style with ornate carved brick chimney stacks. Wadston Manor is now managed by the Rothschild Foundation on behalf of the National Trust. As bankers and industrialists joined the ranks of country house owners, a closer relationship emerged with the established landowning aristocracy. A peer of the realm on a company board added a touch of kudos and inspired confidence in investors. Prominent among Americans buying into the country house lifestyle was multimillionaire William Waldorf Astor, who moved his family to England in 1891, where his son Waldorf Jr., then aged 12, studied at Eton and Oxford. The Asters initially leased Lansdowne House in central London before moving to the country, purchasing Cliveden House, an 1851 Italianate mansion overlooking the River Thames in Buckinghamshire, in 1893. Adding Hever Castle in Kent to a growing property portfolio 2 years later. Astor became a British citizen in 1899 and was given a peerage as Viscount Aster in 1917. Cliveden had been designed by Charles Barry for the Duke of Sutherland to replace an earlier house destroyed by fire. The clock tower, by architect Henry Clutton, was added in 1861 and contains a functioning water tank. The house is set in some 375 acres of woodland and themed gardens, including statuary. This is the Fountain of Love, one of the largest formal parterres in Europe, leading from the house to the river, and a Japanese-style water garden. Waldorf Jr. married Nancy Langhorne, a clever divorcee with a young son he had met on a transatlantic voyage in 1906, and the pair were given Cliveden as a wedding present, and where they entertained guests including politicians, film stars, writers and artists at lavish weekend parties. Diplomat and writer Harold Nicholson said of Cliveden, "I enjoy seeing it, but to own it, to live here, would be like living on the stage of the Scala Theatre in Milan." Nancy Aster was elected MP for Plymouth Sutton, which had been represented by Waldorf until he entered the House of Lords as Baron Aster of Hever, and became the first woman to take her seat in the House of Commons. In 1963, Cliveden was at the centre of the Profumo affair. Today, the Cliveden estate is in the hands of the National Trust, and the house is a luxury hotel. Among the so-called dollar princesses who bailed out cash-strapped country landowners was Consuelo Vanderbilt, daughter of American railroad and shipping tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt, who married Charles Spencer Churchill, Duke of Marlborough of Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire in 1895 at the insistence of her ambitious mother, breaking off her engagement to a New York socialite, Winthrop Rutherford. Consuelo came with $2.5 million in railroad shares. Not all transatlantic marriages were about finance and status. Fred Astaire's elder sister and long-time stage partner Adele became fascinated by English society while appearing at London's Shaftesbury Theatre, decided to leave the stage and proposed to Charles Cavendish, a younger son of the Duke of Devonshire, who promptly accepted. A sceptical Duke was won over when Adele cartwheeled over to be introduced. Adele, a Roman Catholic, was received into the Church of England on the morning of the wedding, which took place in the chapel at Chatsworth House in 1932, the first wedding to take place there. Charles Cavendish's nephew, the son of his older brother Edward, Marquess of Hartington, and heir to the dukedom when he was killed in Belgium by a sniper during the Second World War, married Kathleen Kick Kennedy, sister of future US President John F. Kennedy. The pair had met in 1943 when Kathleen was working for the Red Cross in England. Country house parties were enjoyable interludes and an opportunity to pursue social, political and business ambitions and to look out for eligible matches for sons and daughters. They were also an opportunity for shenanigans. The arrival of the railway in the 19th century heralded something of a heyday for these weekend events. They will be my topic next time. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.